Hello everyone, Sarah Klein here. Thanks so much for joining. So I am going to, in this little demo, give you a couple of yoga drills to bring home into your practice. Now I'm going to go through them in a teaching fashion, and I welcome you as you're scrolling through to kind of take on the information and then integrate it into a practice when you're already warm and ready to go. So first, what we're going to work on is some wrist strengthening. Now, of course, when we are bearing weight, we want to keep in mind that we're looking beyond the obvious and looking into our core. So this is one of my very favorite wrist strengthening exercises. So as you can see here, I'm on my knees. I'm going to come forward onto my hands. Now, I'm going to keep the pads of my fingers grounded. So the knuckles of your palm stay touching the ground. What you're going to do is you're going to claw, like you had cat hands, into the floor. Keep all 10 knuckles pushing down. Press your shoulders right over your wrist, and then you're going to lift the heel of the hand. So we're going to go for 10. You lift the heel of the hand like a pencil we're sliding underneath it, and then you place it down. Now again, look beyond the obvious. Draw the low belly in and up, zip front ribs into back ribs, and then we're going on repetition here. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Keep the skin of the chest lifted and the sternum reaching forward. We'll call that 10. If you're with me, I bet you can feel it. Now we're going to have the fingertips face one another. Again, the knuckles stay touching the ground. You've got cat hands here. So claw with the fingertips, lift the heel of the hand. 1, 2, 3, draw the low belly in and up. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now fingertips face away from one another. You know the drill. Focus your eyes and see if you can link it with your breath. So again, fingertips clawing into the ground, stacking shoulders over wrists, trying to use strength over momentum. Then you've got your fingertips facing your knees. Same deal, claw, ground the knuckles, and then you've got 10 lifts of the heels of the hand. If you're doing this with me, you will feel the lactic acid in your forearms, I promise. So again, draw the low belly in and up, stay stable in your core. Now we're gonna stretch out those forearms. So curl your toes forward, sink your hips back, and stretch out your forearms. Now lift the sternum forward, lengthening across the front line of the spine. Take a couple deep breaths here, and then release. So what we're going to be doing here is a little what we're going to do next is protraction and retraction of the shoulder joint. And we will build some strength and stability in the shoulder so that we will be prepared to bear weight. I'll give you a couple exercises to add into your practice, and then I'll offer you a little play of how you can utilize these skills and put them into some fun play on your mat. So here, when I have my arm out in front of me, if I protract my shoulder, the scapula widens on the back and my arm gets longer. Now I'm not moving my torso, I'm using the shoulder joint to make the arm longer. And then when I retract, the scapula kind of comes in towards the other one and I lock and load the joint. So this, you could even just try here. You're starting to build awareness, strength, and stability. Okay, so you can play around with that, see how that feels. Now, let's take it into a plank. So we're gonna curl our toes forward. Now, as we come into our plank, we want to be mindful that we're hooking our tailbone down towards the ground, drawing our low belly in and up, and spiraling the inner thighs to the ceiling. Then what tends to happen is we may curl in the thoracic. We want to keep the front line of the spine nice and long and energize through the legs. Now we're going to play with that exercise. So I'm going to protract, reach the thoracic spine up to the ceiling, and then I'm going to retract the shoulder blades. So the shoulder blades come towards one another and the skin of the chest comes down and forward. Protract, retract, protract, retract. Let's go for 5 more. Link it with your breath. Keep the eyes focused. 3, 2, and 1. Good. Go ahead and take rest. So you could always come into a child's pose in your practice to stretch out those arms. And see about breathing into your back body to drop the nervous system after we revved it up. All right, so there's something to work on. It's a strong variation, so be ready to work. Now we're going to take it up one level and try it in a different form. So this one is going to really demand, of course, the plank demands that we use our core. We're going to further that. So I want you to, of course, look beyond the obvious. You're going to feel it probably pretty intensely into your shoulders. Never go beyond your edge. How do we know where our edge is? It's in our breath. So if the breath starts to waver, then you've gone too far. And that's the great art of yoga, is really, it is a moving, breathing meditation. It is about creating presence through the physical body and using the physical body as our gateway into the now, which is where yoga can really be experienced. All right, so if you're practicing with me, gear up, soften into the breath. You're going to come onto your elbows, and your elbows are shoulder distance apart. You're going to interlace your fingers, curl your toes forward, and send your hips up into the sky. Now, usually when we come into this dolphin pose, we have our shoulders over our elbows. In this fun variation, we're going to kick forward. So you're going to place your shoulders between your elbow and your fingers. Now, work the elbows away from one another. You're going to feel a nice rinse in your shoulder joint. Turn on your legs, draw your low belly in and up. And now we're going to protract and retract. So as we retract, the chest goes forward and down. As we protract, the scapula move away from one another. We can feel a lift in the thoracic. So here's a little exercise to play with to add in for strength and stability at your home practice. Okay, let's go for 5 more. Link it with the breath. 1, 2 mindful movements. You're stronger than you think you are, so stick with it. 1 more, and take rest. So forehead on the ground, stretch out through your arms, and take a couple deep breaths into your back body. All right, now I'm going to plant a little seed for you to play with, and please let me know in the comments how it lands. So another way that you could play with protracting, retracting of the shoulders is standing. And so I'm going to start with that, introduce that for the strength and the stability and the awareness. And then we're going to find kind of a midline between those two and maybe start by lifting our feet off of the ground and bearing weight on our hands. So at any point when you're doing these types of drills and exercises, make sure that you stretch out your wrists and give them what they need. So from here, I'm going to start in a Uttanasana. Feet are hip distance apart, taking a nice forward fold. Again, as I said earlier, the idea of this video is giving you things to do in your home practice when you're warm, things to play with. So don't necessarily come cold into these videos. So first, I'm going to put my hands like 3 feet in front of my feet, and I'm going to find that hand position that we started with, clawing with the fingertips, pressing down through the knuckles. I'm going to come up onto the tips of my toes, lengthen the sternum forward, and here we can start playing with that protract and retract. So doing these little push-ups deep in the shoulders, and then give yourself some rest and let it go. Okay, so that's A. B, we come forward, lengthen through the front line of the spine, and then maybe touch. Toes touch wrists. Start to play with some movement there. And then, let it go, let the head get heavy. Find some sweetness in the effort. And then you guessed it, why we come to yoga? To learn to meditate. So from here, I always like to joke, this is where you want your 70s style bangles. Stack them up on your arms so you got something to stand on. Now, of course, move with the wisdom of your breath. So catch the inner rhythm and then lean forward, lengthen through the front line of the spine, claw with the fingertips, and then maybe we take steps onto our wrist. Low belly draws in and up. Try to find ease within the effort. And then, let that shit go. Take a couple breaths. All right, so as always, when doing these exercises or these drills, give yourself time to work it out. Now, this next one, actually in both of those, what could be your obstacle, your hamstrings. And so if the hamstrings are the obstacle, feel free to bend the knees and lighten the load on the hamstrings. Now, Bakasana, this protracting and retracting of the shoulders is getting you strong and stable in the joint, preparing you to bear weight. Is also helping you create mobility. So we'll need that to hold ourselves in Bakasana, the crow pose. And so to kind of tie this off and hopefully give you something fun to feel inspired by and to integrate into your home practice, we're going to go from crow pose to that standing on our imaginary bangles. So for option A, we start working with crow. Now, very often people come into crow with their knees and their toes facing this way, and you're like a frog, ribbit, ribbit. We're trying to be a crow here. So toes forward, knees forward. Get your knees up into the underarms. The counter pose is in the pose. There's the trick. So as you're coming forward into this arm balance, think of a back bend. Lift the skin of the chest, reach the sternum forward, lengthen across the front line of the spine. Okay, there we go. And then of course, if we're breathing, we're doing it right. All right, then we can start to play. Maybe our toes come to our wrists. And then from here, with a deep inhale, a lift of the pelvic floor and the low belly, maybe we stand up onto our hands and see what happens. And then of course, take rest. Now remember, we don't do yoga to get good at these postures. Don't be fools. What keeps us coming back to these postures is that they become a container for us to see ourselves with clarity. It truly is a psychology. And why the postures in these advanced, really difficult postures can be so inspiring is because they help prove ourselves to ourselves in the sense that as we come into these poses, we'll witness our mind fill up with self-limiting belief patterns. I mean, I remember the first times I saw some of these postures, I was like, oh yeah, okay, no thanks. But keep coming back with consistency, devotion, heart, love, curiosity, and the beauty of the asanas is they help you to break through your self-limiting belief patterns through consistent devotion. So remember, it's not about the poses. So stick with it. Let me know how it goes in the comments below, and thanks for watching.